to empires, to the contents of your refrigerator, follows the same rule. Stuff expires so other stuff can happen. There was a Roman god called Terminus who watched over boundaries and endings, not because Romans loved paperwork, but because they understood something we've forgotten. Borders are not walls. They're places where one thing stops and another begins. In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. Carl Jung. Your body replaces every cell roughly every 7 to 10 years. The person watching this video is made of different atoms than the person who started watching it. You are not the same person who had breakfast this morning, yet somehow you remember what you ate. Biology treats continuity like a magic trick performed with spare parts. And please, this is not just philosophy, it's physics. The second law of thermodynamics says entropy always increases. Things fall apart, but here's the part they don't mention in textbooks. Falling apart is not the opposite of order. It's the price of order. It's the price of organization. Stars burn out so planets can form. Dinosaurs go extinct so mammals get their shot. Darwin spent years wondering why anything dies at all. If natural selection favors survival, why didn't evolution just make us immortal? Turns out death is not a system error. It's a feature. Species that can't die can't change. And species that can change get eaten by something that can. Think about this. If the first bacteria that crawled out of the primordial soup were still alive today, they'd still be bacteria. Evolution needs turnover. It needs fresh DNA shuffling through the gene pool like cards in a casino. Death isn't the end of the game. It's how the house keeps dealing new hands. The Amish understand this better than most tech billionaires. Every few years, they hold something called Rumspringa, where teenagers get to leave the community and try living in the regular world. Most come back. Some don't. The ones who stay gone are not failures. They're proof that the system works. The community stays strong, partly because it's willing to let people go. It's counterintuitive, right? Most organizations try to prevent people from leaving. They build golden handcuffs, loyalty programs, exit interviews designed to guilt you into staying. But the Amish figured out something that Harvard Business School is still teaching wrong. Sometimes the health of the whole depends on the freedom of the individual to choose something else. What you resist persists. Carl Jung. The Buddha had a word for this. Impermanence. Everything changes. The flower blooms, then wilts. The empire rises, then falls. Your favorite restaurant closes and becomes a mattress store that nobody ever seems to visit but somehow stays in business. And fighting impermanence is like trying to argue with gravity. You can try, but the ground always wins. Only that which changes remains true. Carl Jung. Ancient Greeks told stories about heroes who couldn't die. Prometheus, chained to a rock, getting his liver eaten by an eagle every day for eternity. Sisyphus, pushing the same boulder up the same hill forever. These were not rewards, they were punishments. The Greeks understood that immortality isn't paradise. It's hell with better lighting. But here's what's really wild. These weren't just stories to the Greeks. They were warnings. Prometheus wasn't punished for stealing fire. He was punished for trying to make humans immortal like the gods. The Greeks saw immortality as the ultimate hubris. They understood that death gives weight to every choice, urgency to every moment, meaning to every relationship. Without the possibility of loss, love becomes habit. Without the reality of time running out, dreams become someday maybes that never arrive. People are happier when they know their experiences will end. A vacation feels better when you know it's temporary. A meal tastes better when you're not going to eat it every day for the rest of your life. Scarcity creates value. If everything lasted forever, nothing would matter. This is why retirement parties are more meaningful than Monday morning meetings. Why graduation feels more significant than just another Tuesday in algebra class. Why the last episode of your favorite show hits different than episode 3 of season 2. Tech companies hate this. They build products designed to last forever, then wonder why nobody feels satisfied using them. Facebook wants to be your permanent social life. Google wants to be your permanent brain. Amazon wants to be your permanent everything. But permanence kills meaning, the same way fluorescent lights kill romance. Think about the apps on your phone. The ones you use every day have become invisible, haven't they? They're utility, not joy. But the app you discovered last week, or the one you're about to delete, those have emotional weight because they exist in the space between arrival and departure. Marie-Louise von Franz, Jung's closest collaborator, once said, "Endings are not failures. They are the psychological springboard for rebirth." The Japanese have a concept called mono no aware, the bittersweet awareness that all things must pass. Cherry blossoms are beautiful partly because they only last a few weeks. If they bloomed year-round, we'd call them weeds and spray them with chemicals. But mono no aware goes deeper than aesthetics. It's a way of seeing that finds beauty specifically in transience. The old man feeding pigeons in the park, the coffee shop that's about to close down, the last snow of winter melting in the gutters. These moments are beautiful not despite their temporary nature, but because of it. Western culture wants to freeze these moments, photograph them, make them permanent. Eastern wisdom says that trying to hold on to them is exactly what kills their beauty. Cities know this instinctively. New York tears down buildings every few decades, not because they're broken, but because the city needs room to become something else. London burns down every few centuries and rebuilds itself better than before. The cities that try to preserve everything exactly as it was become museums that people visit on weekends, but wouldn't want to live in. Your brain does this too. Sleep is not just rest. It's your mind's way of throwing away the stuff you don't need. Every night, your brain sorts through the day's experiences and deletes most of them. Scientists call this synaptic pruning. While you sleep, your brain literally takes out the trash, weakening connections that aren't important, strengthening the ones that matter. If your brain kept every piece of information from every day, you'd remember what you had for lunch on Tuesday, March 15th, 2007, but you wouldn't be able to recognize your own face in a mirror. Memory isn't about storage. It's about editing. Your brain is constantly deciding what's worth keeping and what needs to go. Forgetting isn't a bug in the system. It's how the system works. Companies that understand endings thrive. Netflix killed its own DVD business to focus on streaming. Apple discontinued the iPod when smartphones made it obsolete. Kodak invented digital photography, then refused to use it because they didn't want to hurt film sales. Guess which company still exists? Easter only makes sense because Good Friday happened first. Resurrection requires death. Redemption requires something to be redeemed from. Even atheists celebrate New Year's Eve, which is a secular ritual about ending one year so another can begin. The stock market runs on this principle. Bull markets end, so bear markets can begin. Bear markets end, so bull markets can begin. Investors who try to prevent crashes just make them worse when they finally happen. The system stays healthy by regularly having small heart attacks. Forest fires work the same way. Smokey the Bear spent decades telling us that fires were always bad. Turns out some trees can't reproduce without fire. Their seeds need extreme heat to open. Preventing all fires doesn't save the forest. It just builds up fuel for a bigger fire later. California learned this the hard way. For nearly a century, they put out every fire they could find. The forest floor got thick with dead wood and undergrowth. When fires finally came, they burned so hot they killed everything, even the trees that were supposed to survive fire. Sometimes preventing small endings guarantees catastrophic ones. Indigenous people knew this. They used controlled burns to keep forests healthy. They understood that fire wasn't the enemy of the forest. Fire was how the forest renewed itself. Your habits are no exception. The gym membership you never use has to expire before you try rock climbing. The job you hate has to end before you'll start the business you've been thinking about. The relationship that isn't working has to finish before you can find one that does. This doesn't mean you should burn everything down just for fun. Some things deserve to last. But trying to make everything last forever is like trying to hold your breath permanently. Eventually, you have to let go. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. Carl Jung. The trick isn't avoiding endings. The trick is getting better at spotting which endings are gifts in disguise. Sometimes the job that fires you is doing you a favor. Sometimes the friend who stops calling saves you years of pretending everything is fine. Jung had a term for this. Enantiodromia. It means that when something reaches its extreme, it turns into its opposite. The relationship that feels like it's killing you might actually be dying so you can live. The career that's suffocating you might be ending so you can finally breathe. But Here's the thing, you won't see this while you're in it. You'll only understand it later, looking back. The gift is wrapped in grief, and you have to unwrap it before you can see what's inside. Death clears the stage so life can keep performing new plays. Without it, we'd still be watching the same show from opening night, and even Shakespeare would get boring after the first few 1,000 years. Some things end, so you can begin without them. The question is not whether this is fair. The question is whether you're paying attention to what wants to begin.